The massive Jurathi vessel emerged from quantum space directly above New York City, its crystalline surface refracting sunlight into prismatic patterns across the skyline. Unlike the chaos such arrivals typically caused in human fiction, the streets below remained surprisingly calm. After 6 months of smaller Jurathi scout ships studying Earth, the arrival of their Supreme Assessor was expected. Supreme Assessor Valthor stood at the observation deck of his flagship, his iridescent scales shifting from deep purple to midnight blue as he contemplated the planet below. His 4 eyes, each capable of seeing into different spectrums of reality, studied the primitive chemical rockets and crude satellite networks surrounding the planet. Fascinating how they cling to such outdated technology, he mused to his assistant, Carl. Their most advanced satellites still use radio waves for communication. Radio waves, Carl. We abandoned those before we achieved spaceflight. Carol, her scales a more modest green, consulted the holographic display floating before her. The humans have shown remarkable progress in their brief civilization. Supreme Assessor. They advanced from first flight to space travel in less than a century. Progress without wisdom is meaningless. Valthor dismissed her observation with a wave of his upper arm. They split the atom and immediately built weapons. They discovered genetics and rushed to modify their crops without understanding the consequences. They are children playing with forces beyond their comprehension. In a laboratory 17 stories below the streets of Manhattan, Dr. Sarah Chen stared at her computer screen, her eyes wide with disbelief. The quantum fluctuation readings from the Jurathi ships made no sense, or rather, they made too much sense. Dr. Chen, her assistant, James Wright, placed a fresh cup of coffee beside her keyboard. The UN Security Council is waiting for your preliminary analysis. Sarah barely heard him, her mind racing through the implications of what she was seeing. The Jurathi quantum drive signatures weren't random at all. They followed a pattern, a beautiful, predictable pattern that reminded her of music, she whispered. What? They're quantum signatures. They're like music. Look at this. She pulled up a visualization of the data. See how it repeats. These aren't just random quantum fluctuations. They're using quantum harmonics to stabilize their drives. It's elegant, but it's also what? Predictable. Above the city, Valthor prepared to address humanity. The Jurathi Dominion had been evaluating emerging civilizations for 10,000 years, helping guide worthy species into the galactic community while protecting the cosmos from dangerous, uncontrolled expansion. Earth had shown promise, but also deeply concerning patterns. The holographic projection of his form appeared simultaneously in every major city on Earth, his voice translated into all human languages. People of Earth, I am Supreme Assessor Valthor of the Jurathi Dominion. For 6 months, we have studied your civilization, your achievements, and your potential. In the UN Security Council chamber, world leaders sat in tense silence as the alien continued. We have found you to be innovative, adaptable, and possessed of great potential. However, we have also observed reckless advancement without proper safeguards, development of weapons before achieving unity, and a dangerous tendency toward conflict resolution through force. Sarah's fingers flew across her keyboard, correlating data from quantum sensors worldwide. Each Jurathi ship's quantum signature was like an instrument in an orchestra, playing its part in a complex symphony that allowed them to manipulate space-time. But like any symphony, if you knew the score. Therefore, Valthor's voice resonated with authority. You will be given 30 days to demonstrate your species' wisdom and restraint. Prove you can unite in peace, that you can prioritize collective advancement over individual gain, that you can be trusted with the power of the cosmos. In the Security Council chamber, the Chinese representative leaned forward. And if we fail this assessment? Valthor's hologram smiled, an expression that showed too many teeth. Then, for the safety of the galaxy, your species' advancement will be curtailed. You will be restricted to your planet until you demonstrate the necessary maturity for interstellar civilization. Sarah finally looked up from her computer, her face pale, but her eyes bright with determination. "James, get me a secure line to the Security Council. I know how we can beat them." "Beat them?" James stared at her. "Dr. Chen, they're centuries ahead of us. Their ships can manipulate quantum spacetime. They have technology we can't even understand." Sarah's smile contained the same fierce pride that had driven humanity from caves to the stars. "That's where you're wrong, James. We don't need to understand all their technology. We just need to understand one thing: their quantum drives. And thanks to their own arrogance, they've just shown us exactly how they work." As Valthor's hologram faded, he returned his attention to the tactical display showing Earth's primitive defenses. They had 30 days to prove their worth, but he had already made his decision. A species this young, this fractious, this dependent on brute force solutions could never be trusted with advanced technology. In her underground lab, Sarah Chen began composing humanity's response, not with weapons or politics, but with mathematics and music. The Jurethi's quantum harmonics were about to meet human ingenuity, and the galaxy would never be the same. The Supreme Assessor gave humanity 30 days to prove their worth. He didn't realize he had just given them exactly what they needed: a deadline, a challenge, and most importantly, a reason to unite. Humanity had always performed best when backed into a corner, and the Jurethi were about to learn why. The Joint Chiefs sat in stunned silence as Dr. Sarah Chen's presentation concluded. The holographic display in the Pentagon's secure briefing room showed wave after wave of quantum harmonics data, each pattern highlighted and annotated with mathematical precision. "Let me make sure I understand this correctly," General Miranda Hayes said, leaning forward. Her weathered face reflected decades of military service, but nothing in her experience had prepared her for this. "You're saying the Jurethi's supposedly advanced quantum drive technology operates on musical principles." "Not exactly musical," Sarah corrected, her excitement barely contained. "But the mathematical patterns are similar. Every Jurethi ship generates quantum fluctuations that follow specific harmonious frequencies. It's brilliant engineering, using natural quantum harmonics to stabilize their space-time manipulations. But it's also their weakness." Admiral Chen Weiliang, no relation to Sarah, stroked his chin thoughtfully. "Because patterns can be predicted." "Exactly." Sarah pulled up a new visualization. "Look at this. Every Jurethi ship's quantum signature is like an instrument in an orchestra. Their flagship, that's the conductor, setting the base frequency. The smaller ships adjust their harmonics in relation to the flagship's signal. It's elegant, efficient, and completely predictable." "And how does this help us?" General Hayes asked. "Even if we can predict their quantum signatures, they're still centuries ahead of us technologically." Sarah's eyes gleamed. "Because we don't need to match their technology. We just need to disrupt their harmony." In high orbit above Earth, Valthor reviewed the latest cultural analysis reports from Carl. The humans were reacting to his ultimatum exactly as expected. Their media was full of panic, their leaders were arguing about appropriate responses, and their military forces remained on high alert. "Such a waste of energy," he commented to Carl. "They spend more time fighting among themselves than working toward solutions." Carol's scales shifted to a thoughtful blue-green. "There are some interesting anomalies in the data. Supreme Assessor, several major research facilities have gone dark, and we're detecting increased power consumption in unexpected locations. Probably trying to hide their weapons development." Valthor dismissed her concerns. "It's the typical response of primitive species. When faced with superior technology, they invariably turn to violence." Back on Earth, Sarah's theory was being put to the test. In a repurposed particle accelerator facility deep beneath the Swiss Alps, scientists from 30 nations worked in shifts around the clock. The massive circular chamber had been modified to generate precise quantum frequencies. "Power levels at 80% and holding," Dr. Yuki Tanaka reported, her fingers dancing across the control panel. "Quantum harmonic generator is synchronized with the test drone." Sarah nodded, her heart pounding. They had built a small drone with a simplified version of the Jurathy quantum drive, based entirely on observed harmonics patterns. If her theory was correct, initiate the disruption sequence. The chamber hummed to life. On their monitors, they watched as carefully calibrated waves of quantum energy intersected with the drone's quantum field. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the drone's quantum field collapsed completely. The observation room erupted in cheers, but Sarah was already reaching for her phone. "Get me General Hayes. Tell her Project Harmony is ready for full-scale testing." In orbit, Carol's scales suddenly shifted to alarming orange. "Supreme Assessor, we've detected an unusual quantum fluctuation from the surface." Valthor examined the readings with mild interest. "Some sort of particle physics experiment. See, they're trying to replicate our quantum technology. Admirable, but futile. They lack the fundamental understanding of cosmic harmonics that took us millennia to develop." On every continent, hidden facilities began construction. The humans built their primitive chemical rockets and satellites under the watchful eyes of the Jurathy, while in secret, a network of quantum harmonic generators took shape. Each generator was tuned to a specific frequency in the complex symphony of Jurathy quantum drives. 20 days into their 30-day trial, humanity was ready for their first full-scale test. In a remote area of the Australian outback, a small Jurathy scout ship passed over a seemingly empty stretch of desert. Sarah stood in the control center with military leaders from a dozen nations. "Activate Generator Array Alpha." The quantum harmonic generators spun up, their frequencies precisely calibrated to interfere with the scout ship's quantum field. For 3 seconds, nothing seemed to happen. Then the scout ship's quantum drive stuttered, causing it to drop briefly out of its patrol pattern before its backup systems engage. The room erupted in controlled celebration. General Hayes turned to Sarah with newfound respect. "How long until we can extend this effect to their entire fleet?" Sarah's expression was grim but determined. "Give me 5 more days. We'll only get one shot at this. We need to take out their quantum drive capabilities simultaneously, or they'll adapt." In his flagship, Valthor reviewed the scout ship incident with growing concern. "The quantum fluctuation readings make no sense. How could a primitive species possibly affect our drive systems?" Carol's scales had shifted to a deep purple of worry. "Perhaps we should investigate more thoroughly." "No," Valthor decided. "We stick to the assessment protocol. In 8 days, we will deliver our judgment. The humans have shown nothing to indicate they deserve a place among spacefaring civilizations." Sarah Chen stared at the global map showing the network of quantum harmonic generators. Humanity had done in 20 days what the Jurathy thought impossible, not by matching their technology, but by understanding its fundamental principles and finding its weakness. In 8 days, the Jurathy would learn that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology, but their ability to observe, adapt, and overcome. The symphony of quantum harmonics that had carried the Jurathy across the galaxy was about to meet its first discordant note. The global command center, hastily constructed within Mount Cheyenne, hummed with activity. Holographic displays showed the positions of over 300 quantum harmonic generators strategically placed around the world. Each one was disguised as something the Jurathy would expect to see: primitive radio telescopes, weather stations, or simple power facilities. Dr. Sarah Chen stood before the central display, dark circles under her eyes betraying countless sleepless nights. Next to her, James Wright updated the synchronization calculations for the 1,000th time. "Final generator coming online in Shanghai," he reported. "Network completion at 99.8%. General Hayes approached with a tablet displaying the latest intelligence. "The Jurathy are getting suspicious. Their scan patterns have changed in the last 12 hours. Sarah nodded without taking her eyes off the display. "They're looking in the wrong place. They expect us to try copying their technology, not understanding its fundamental principles." In orbit, Valthor's flagship maintained its position above New York City, a constant reminder of humanity's Judgment Day. The Supreme Assessor reviewed the latest reports with growing irritation, his scales shifting between deep purple and angry red. "These energy signatures make no sense," he muttered, bringing up a global map. "The humans appear to be building some sort of worldwide energy network, but the power outputs are far too low for any meaningful weapon system." Carol, who had been quietly running her own analysis, spoke hesitantly. "Supreme Assessor, I've noticed a pattern in their construction activities. The facilities they're building. They form a kind of lattice around our patrol routes." "A primitive attempt at containment," Valthor laughed. "Their entire civilization barely understands quantum mechanics. They cannot possibly hope to affect our ships." Deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, in a research station converted from an abandoned mining facility, Dr. Yuki Tanaka led the final calibration tests. The quantum harmonic generators had to be perfectly synchronized. A discrepancy of even a millisecond could give the Jurethi enough time to adapt. "Running Simulation 17, she announced to her international team. The holographic display showed a perfect model of the Jurethi fleet, their quantum signatures pulsing in complex patterns. When the simulated generators activated, the quantum fields collapsed precisely as predicted." Yuki allowed herself a small smile as she sent the results to Mount Cheyenne. "Dr. Chen, final calibration tests are complete. All systems showing green." In Moscow, Beijing, Washington, and a dozen other capitals, military leaders prepared their conventional forces. The moment the Jurethi ships lost their quantum drive capabilities, they would be vulnerable to ordinary weapons, assuming humanity's desperate gamble worked. Sarah received a priority message from the UN Security Council. With just 48 hours remaining before the Jurethi's deadline, the world's leaders had made their decision. They would not wait to be judged. "Dr. Chen," the Council's message read, "you have authorization to proceed with Operation Counterpoint. May whatever gods exist have mercy on us all." In his flagship, Valthor prepared his judgment speech. After careful consideration, he had decided to be merciful. The humans would not be destroyed, merely confined to their solar system for the next 1,000 years, until they learned proper cosmic citizenship. "Carl," he called to his assistant, "begin the containment field calculations. We'll need to establish a quantum barrier around their entire system." Carol's scales shifted to a troubled gray. "Supreme Assessor, these energy readings from the surface, they're forming some kind of resonance pattern. Your concern for primitive technologies is becoming tiresome," Valthor snapped. "They barely understand the basics of quantum physics. What harm could they possibly?" A priority alert cut him off. 3 scout ships in the southern hemisphere were reporting quantum field fluctuations. Minor disturbances, easily corrected, but troubling nonetheless. Sarah stood in the command center, surrounded by military leaders and scientists from around the world. On the main display, a countdown ticked away the final hours before the Jurethi's deadline. "All quantum harmonic generators report ready," James announced. "Global synchronization achieved." General Hayes stepped forward. "Dr. Chen, we're detecting increased activity in the Jurethi fleet. They may suspect something." Sarah took a deep breath, remembering the moment she first recognized the pattern in their quantum drives. The Jurethi's greatest strength, their perfect harmony of quantum fields, was about to become their greatest weakness. "They don't suspect the right thing," she said firmly. "They're looking for weapons, for crude attempts to copy their technology. They'd never expect us to turn their own quantum harmonics against them." Around the world, humanity held its breath. In secret bunkers and hidden facilities, scientists and soldiers made their final preparations. The quantum harmonic generators hummed quietly, each one a note in humanity's reply to the Jurethi's symphony of judgment. Valthor stood on his flagship's observation deck, watching the lights of Earth's cities below. In 36 hours, he would deliver his verdict, never suspecting that humanity had already decided to rewrite the ending of this cosmic assessment. In Mount Cheyenne, Sarah Chen looked at the faces around her. American, Chinese, Russian, Indian, European, African, all united in this moment of defiance. Humanity had spent its 30 days not trying to prove its worth to the Jurathi, but preparing to prove it to themselves. "Begin final countdown," she ordered. "Operation Counterpoint commences in 12 hours. The trap was set, the instruments were tuned, and humanity was about to show the galaxy that sometimes the most powerful response to a symphony of arrogance is a carefully calculated moment of silence. The dawn of Judgment Day broke over Earth with deceptive serenity. Valthor's flagship, gleaming like a crystal cathedral in the morning light, descended through the atmosphere to hover above the United Nations headquarters in New York. The rest of the Jurathi fleet moved into position around the globe, their quantum drives humming in perfect harmony. In Mount Cheyenne's command center, Dr. Sarah Chen watched the Jurathi ships settle into exactly the positions they had predicted. Their mathematical precision, once their greatest strength, had made them perfectly predictable. "All Jurathi vessels have reached their final positions," James reported, his voice steady despite the tension. "Quantum field synchronization at peak efficiency." General Hayes stepped forward, her dress uniform immaculate. "They're right where we want them, Dr. Chen. The question is, are we ready?" Sarah studied the holographic display showing the global network of quantum harmonic generators, 317 precisely tuned instruments, ready to play humanity's response to the Jurathi's cosmic symphony. "We're ready," she said firmly. "Initiate Operation Counterpoint." Above New York, Valthor's holographic form materialized simultaneously in every major city square across the planet. His scales shifted through shades of royal purple as he prepared to deliver his prepared judgment. "People of Earth," his voice resonated with authority. 30 days ago, we challenged you to prove your species' worth. We observed your responses, measured your progress, and evaluated your potential. In the command center, Sarah watched the quantum field readings climb. Generators 1 through 50, power-up sequence initiated. Valthor continued his speech, unaware of the building resonance beneath him. "While we acknowledge your species' innovative spirit, you have failed to demonstrate the wisdom and unity required for cosmic citizenship. Therefore, generators 51 through 100 coming online," James announced. "Quantum field interference patterns forming." Valthor paused, his scales shifting slightly as he felt a subtle disturbance in his ship's quantum field. Carol's voice came through on a private channel, tinged with concern. "Supreme Assessor, we're detecting unusual quantum fluctuations. Maintain the broadcast," Valthor commanded. He would not let primitive anomalies interrupt this moment. "Therefore, by the authority of the Jurathi Dominion, your species will be." "All generators at full power," Sarah announced. "Global synchronization achieved. On my mark." Valthor's scales suddenly shifted to alarm orange as warning signals flooded his ship's systems. The quantum fluctuations were growing stronger, forming impossible patterns that somehow matched, and then countered, his fleet's quantum harmonics. "Impossible," he whispered. "Now," Sarah commanded. 317 quantum harmonic generators activated simultaneously, their carefully calculated frequencies colliding with the Jurathi quantum drives like waves crashing into a crystal palace. The effect was instantaneous and devastating. Across the globe, Jurathi ships suddenly lost their quantum field stability. The perfect harmony that allowed them to manipulate space-time shattered into discord. Emergency systems screamed as ships designed to dance between dimensions found themselves trapped in normal space. Valthor's flagship lurched violently as its quantum drive failed. "What is happening?" he demanded, his scales cycling through colors of panic and rage. On every view screen and holographic projector that had been broadcasting his judgment, Sarah Chen's face appeared instead. "The Jurathi Dominion asked us to prove our worth," she announced, her voice calm but firm. "We chose to do so not by your standards, but by demonstrating humanity's greatest strengths: observation, adaptation, and innovation." Around the world, conventional military forces emerged from hiding. Fighter jets rose to surround the now vulnerable Jurethi ships. Missile batteries tracked targets that had suddenly lost their quantum-based defensive systems. "Your quantum drive technology is brilliant," Sarah continued, addressing the stunned Valthor directly. "Using natural quantum harmonics to manipulate spacetime. Elegant, beautiful, but like any harmony, it can be disrupted if you understand the underlying mathematics." Valthor's mighty fleet hung in Earth's sky, reduced to expensive sculptures by humanity's understanding of their own technology's fundamental principles. "We spent our 30 days not trying to copy your technology," Sarah explained, "but understanding it. Not attempting to match your advancement, but finding its basic patterns. And most importantly, we did it together. Scientists and soldiers from every nation, united in the defense of our world." In the command center, General Hayes smiled grimly. "All Jurethi vessels are contained. Their quantum drives are offline, and their conventional weapons are targeted by our combined forces." Valthor's hologram appeared in the command center, his scales a mix of rage and disbelief. This is impossible. You are primitives. You still use chemical rockets. We use what works," Sarah replied simply. "And sometimes, Supreme Assessor, understanding is more powerful than advancement." The Jurethi flagship hung powerless above New York, its perfect quantum harmonics reduced to silence by humanity's calculated discord. In that silence, humanity's message rang clear. They would not be judged by the standards of others, but by their own ability to observe, understand, and overcome. "Your judgment is rejected," Sarah declared, speaking for all humanity. "Now shall we discuss new terms?" The Great Hall of the United Nations had never hosted a more extraordinary meeting. Valthor stood before the General Assembly, his once pristine scales now a muted gray of humiliation. Behind him, the holographic displays showed the Jurethi fleet still suspended helplessly above Earth's major cities, their quantum drives silenced by humanity's harmonic network. In 10,000 years of conducting species assessments, Valthor began, his voice carrying none of its former condescension. "No civilization has ever turned our own technology against us. I gravely underestimated humanity." Dr. Sarah Chen sat in the front row between General Hayes and James Wright, watching the mighty Supreme Assessor of the Jurethi Dominion struggle with his new reality. Above them, Carl's scales shifted through shades of fascination as she studied the quantum harmonic generator schematics humanity had provided as proof of their achievement. "The humans didn't try to replicate our technology," she explained to the gathering of alien observers who had arrived to witness this unprecedented event. "They simply learned its mathematical language and spoke back to it. It's brilliant in its simplicity." The Secretary General of the UN stepped forward. "The people of Earth have no desire for conflict with the Jurethi Dominion or any other spacefaring civilization. However, we will not accept judgment based on arbitrary standards of advancement." Through quantum communication channels that humanity now understood well enough to monitor, messages flew between alien species across the galaxy. The news spread rapidly. A primitive species had defeated the Jurethi not through superior technology, but through superior understanding. Valthor's scales shifted to a deep blue of resignation. "The Jurethi Dominion formally recognizes Earth as a sovereign world with the right to develop along its own path. He paused, the words clearly difficult. "We withdraw our authority to judge your species' worth." In the Mount Cheyenne Command Center, now serving as Earth's primary center for monitoring alien activities, scientists from dozens of nations continued studying the quantum harmonics data they'd gathered. Each Jurethi ship had provided new insights into the mathematics of space-time manipulation. "We're already adapting their principles to improve our own technology," Dr. Yuki Tanaka reported, showing Sarah the latest results. "But we're doing it our way. Understanding first, advancement second." Reports came in from around the world. The quantum harmonic network, originally designed as a weapon, was being modified for peaceful applications. Earth's first quantum communication systems were coming online, based not on copied alien technology, but on humanity's unique understanding of the principles involved. In orbit, Carol supervised the careful withdrawal of the Jurathi fleet. Supreme Assessor, she communicated privately to Valfor, "The humans are offering to help us improve our quantum drive stability. They've identified vulnerabilities we never considered." Valfor's scales shifted to a color Carol had never seen before, a mix of humility and awakening. "Perhaps," he replied slowly, "it is we who needed to be assessed." The news reached other emerging civilizations across the galaxy. The age of Jurathi judgment had ended. Earth had demonstrated that true worth lay not in matching predetermined benchmarks of advancement, but in finding one's own path to understanding the cosmos. In her office at the newly established Earth Defense Science Division, Sarah Chen looked out over New York City. The Jurathi flagship's departure had left a strange emptiness in the sky, but humanity's spirit had never been stronger. "Dr. Chen," James entered with a tablet displaying messages from across the galaxy. "We're receiving requests for diplomatic relations from 17 different spacefaring species. They're particularly interested in our approach to quantum harmonics." Sarah smiled. "Send them our standard response. Earth welcomes peaceful exchange of knowledge, provided all parties recognize that different paths to understanding have equal value." General Hayes joined them, looking both proud and thoughtful. "The Jurathi's arrogance nearly led to our extinction. How do we ensure we don't make the same mistake as we take our place among the stars?" "By remembering this moment," Sarah replied, gesturing to the global network display, showing quantum harmonic generators being converted to peaceful use. "Our strength wasn't in the technology we built, but in how we built it. Together, through observation, understanding, and respect for fundamental principles."